Oh, hi everyone. I hope we're live. We somehow just lost Diane. She'll check in with us in just a second again. I don't know what happened. We're having some gremlins in our internet systems tonight, I think in Hillsborough, North Carolina. We are here with Libby Klein from our neighboring state of Virginia. Hey, Libby.
Hello.
We're so excited that you're here. Diane's super excited too. She'll be back in a second. Oh, there she is. What happened? You just disappeared.
I could still hear and see y'all. It's just like my image disappeared.
I think it's something with my system today. I don't know.
Yeah, it's for some reason this machine does not want me to be part of the party.
I like your background, Libby. That's really cool.
Thank you. Just the curtains in my office.
A much better background than my messy office.
I don't have it switched mine. Mine was such a mess.
Yeah.
But this is boring. I need something back there.
I know.
A lot of people got these really cool like Zoom rooms now. I'm just sitting in front of a window. It's nothing fancy.
Yeah. I mean, I got to figure something out. I don't know.
It's kind of fun. It gives your readers like a chance to peek into your life, you know?
Yeah, into our disheveled.
This is my life. Mess.
It looks normal. That looks normal to me.
Yeah.
There's a reason the camera's not pointing that way in this room.
Yeah, right. This is my daughter visited last week and she didn't make the bed before she left and it's still not made. That's the way it goes. Do you have a copy of your book handy to hold up?
Yes, and you read Antique Auctions or Murder.
Yes, we read that. That is our book club choice for the month, and we're going to chit-chat about that. It was such a fun read.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. Okay.
Yeah.
Tracey's here. She says, hi, warriors. Hi, libs.
Yeah, you're very witty, which we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay.
So just welcome. And we're going to kind of take turns with asking our questions and just have a fun conversation.
All right. Sounds like fun.
So the first question I had kind of addresses that exactly. You know, I have studied humor writing and do talks on it. And one of the things I noted immediately was I loved your funny descriptions. And there were so many of them. Like you said, someone blushed so pink that they look like an ad for Good and Plenty. And you described the cat's tail as looking like, it was a snake being charmed. And I thought, oh, that's such a good description. And it's funny. So do you do that consciously? Do you sit there and think, oh, what's a funny way I can describe this? Or does that stuff just kind of roll into your head and come out just organically and quickly?
I'd say 99% of the time, it's just organic. It's just the way my mind works. I have finally found a way to use this warped sense of humor for good. My whole life, people were like, you're not funny. And now I'm like, wait, I'm going to put it in a book.
They were wrong.
I think 1% of the time, I think of something that is actually a cliche and I rework it. Where, you rework it in a way that's similar pattern, similar process, but like completely different words.
Yeah, turn it on its head. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I loved him. I kept looking for the next one. I thought, oh, this is like a good hook because now I want to look at the next funny description, And so it kept me going.
They're just really vivid. They really do the job of putting an image in your head, which is the best kind of description, metaphors, similes, all of that.
Yeah. And they make Poppy seem very clever too, because she's the one thinking these things. So it's like, oh, she's kind of clever and fun and has a good imagination. So it made her kind of a more interesting character hearing these things from her point of view too. So.
It's definitely the secret to Poppy's success with solving murders is that she's very clever and she notices things and she sees things differently than most people. Mm-hmm. So I find that she'll have a way of seeing things and relate them to like the snake charm or tail. Yeah. And not everybody would see it that way. That's how she usually figures out who's been up to no good.
Do you see, this is not one of our written down questions, but do you see a lot of yourself or put a lot of yourself into Poppy then with the way her mind works and the way you described your mind working?
Definitely. I mean, this is the first thing I've ever written. The very first book in the series. Let's see if I get it right. They're all sitting here. No. That class reunion, first thing I've ever written in my life, other than like when I was in second grade and I wrote a short story. So in a lot of ways, Poppy is me. In a lot of ways, she's not. I mean, she's probably better than me in a lot of ways. You know, her issues are my issues, but she's doing better with them. So Poppy's learned a lot. She's changed a lot throughout the series. In fact, there's a very, very big change that happens at the end of Antique Auctions. It's a big moment in her life in the series. It's a big release. And I mean, if I was totally honest, Libby's not really reached that point in her journey of self-acceptance that Poppy has. I'm more the 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of person.
I think that describes most of us.
Yeah. Poppy's like doing really well. He's still trying to get there, but
that's what's fun about writing, isn't it? Like I like making characters that they're always bolder, and we kind of live vicariously through these characters. So we can make them bolder, smarter, whatever than we are, and that's kind of part of the fun. Is that they're maybe who we'd be if we were a little braver, a little smarter, a little whatever, more risk takers or whatever. So that's always kind of fun to.
I always think about them in some way. They're my alter egos. If I were sexier, smarter, clever, or whatever, that's like my alter ego. Yeah. And it's in us, right? So it is actually part of us. It's just not the us that we show to the world.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Poppy definitely sees the world through my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
I often feel like everything that is happening is crazy. And am I the only one that sees this? Am I the only one that sees that the psychic had to shut down for unforeseen circumstances and find that hilarious? I'm laughing. That's hilarious.
You're the one that takes those pictures and posts them on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
We've had some other people join. Hi, Trevor, Sue, Susan, and Carol. Thanks for coming. So glad you're here.
Okay, so I remember this from our chat a year ago. So Libby and I were we share a publishing house, and we were part of a book signing at a bookstore in Libby's neck of the woods just about a year ago, because I was in California at my niece's wedding. And I remember you had this awesome professional kitchen, but I never got the story behind that. But then also I loved the gluten-free components, because we're gluten-free in our household too. I've got 2 kids with celiac, and my daughter and I as well. So I just wanted to kind of chat about all of that.
Okay.
So,
well, I have a gluten-free lifestyle because I have Hashimoto's, which is the other, you can't have gluten disease.
Right.
Because your body sees gluten as thyroid and poison. Oh, that's poison. I shall attack everything. Right. And, so like there's a lot of sickness there. But I also am, and I don't know if this is really a thing, but I am quoting the doctor. I am borderline celiac. What I think that means is that you have to actually be eating gluten to be tested positive for celiac. And I was already gluten-free.
Yeah, that's true, because my 2 kids have had endoscopies, and that's how they test, because they have to go in and take a biopsy of the small intestine, because the intestine is lined with villi, which is how nutrients are absorbed. And when you have celiac, your body kills those off. So the intestinal wall is flat, but if you're already gluten-free, then they wouldn't be able to detect that.
Yes. So I tested something is very, very wrong here. You're right on the edge, but not quite over. But then I've been gluten-free for a long time because of Hashimoto's. So probably, according to medical science, probably also celiac. So yes, I am gluten-free. And I wanted to put gluten-free recipes in my books because I am very strongly given to the power of suggestion. And when I read everybody else's lovely books and their characters are making cookies and cakes, and I'm like, it's the most ridiculous thing. I recognize that I'm ridiculous, but if they're drinking tea, bless God, I'm drinking tea. I got to have tea. I don't ever want tea, but if they're drinking tea, I'm having tea. Suddenly I want cucumber sandwiches because they're having tea. I'm like, I'll stop reading and go make the sandwich and the tea so I can have it. I know it's ridiculous, but I've thought, I can never have anything in any of these books. But if I put gluten-free recipes, then people like me who can never have it can start having some stuff.
It's a great time to be gluten-free, though. When we first started, it was, I don't even know, like 15 years ago, probably. And there was nothing, you had to blend all of your own flours. There were 2 cookbooks, no products. So, if you have to be gluten-free, it's a pretty good time to be gluten-free.
Absolutely.
It's a specialized diet that's gotten so much easier. They make more foods for all kinds of different stuff now, which is nice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a gluten-free company that makes gluten-free donuts now.
Yeah.
What is this?
Katz does, KATZ. They have like little donut holes and stuff, but they're dangerous to have in my household. They're dangerous. Yeah.
It's a short-term danger. It's
Yeah.
like dangerous for a morning, because after that, the danger's gone because you've eaten them all.
Until you go to the store and buy 10 boxes.
Oh, you're a brave woman.
So Libby, Carol wants to know that if you read a book and characters are drinking bourbon, are you going to indulge in bourbon too?
I might be curious, but I don't do alcohol very well. It definitely, if you drink alcohol, you're probably fine. If I drink alcohol, that sip is with me for days and I'm just feeling it. So not much of a drinker, but I'm telling you, if they're drinking a cocktail, I am dying to have that cocktail. I don't know how to make it or what's in it, but I'm like, ooh, I want that for sure.
So going back to the recipes for a second, you had the kohlrabi recipe was borrowed because you're not a fan. Got that. Do you make up the other recipes that had the candy, like the taffy and stuff like that? Because that, I've never heard of muffins like that and with the fried part on top. The other one, what was that one called? The funnel cake muffins. Or
the funnel cake muffin.
I've never. Yeah, they look delicious. It sounded delicious.
I do. I make up the recipes. Now, I didn't make up the recipes in class reunions. First book, I don't even remember what they are. I think I made up a couple of them, but one of them's guacamole. I mean, I make up guacamole. I make really good guacamole, but I certainly didn't make it up. And there's a coconut tortilla in there. So very heavily paleo recipes in class reunions and midnight snacks. Paleo, of course, is gluten-free. Right. But it's also peanut free and soybean free and dairy free. And that was kind of the hook I was going for with the series, because I thought, before I was published, nobody's doing paleo. You want to get published and you want to come up with something different.
Right.
And I was like, nobody is doing paleo. So this will be my hook. And it is. And nobody cares. So I kind of abandoned it because apparently my hook is that the books are funny.
Right.
I had no idea. I hadn't even been that widely read in the cozy mystery genre to realize, but apparently that is how my books are sold, is that they're funny. And then of course, gluten-free. Many of my readers are gluten-free, and I have a newsletter where I give out a gluten-free recipe every month. And
I get your newsletter.
I couldn't believe how many people wanted the gluten-free cream puffs. And they really are delicious. And you cannot tell that they're gluten-free. The secret with making gluten-free breads, whether you're making a cinnamon roll, or you're making hot cross buns, or you're making a loaf of bread, is when it first comes out of the oven, you cannot tell that it's gluten-free.
Right.
It is just magical. It's like the angels blessed it. And as it sits and it cools and it gets, it's gluten-free. It's going to compress a little bit more. And it can taste like it's a little stale after a couple of days, especially faster than store-bought bread that's full of chemicals. I mean, how that doesn't go stale or mold after 2 months should scare you, really. You should be scared. But yeah, we're like, ooh, peanut butter jelly time. So it is all those preservatives. But I do make up the recipes, and there are some excellent recipes. I've come up with themes accidentally. I think wine tastings, that's where it started. I was 95% finished writing Wine Tastings or Murder. And that's when it occurred to me, oh, wait, these recipes should probably have wine in them, shouldn't they? I don't know why it took that long, but it did. So I kind of went back through the book and found all of my recipes and I changed them. So now I have sangria cupcakes, which are absolutely delicious. And I love poached pears and some kind of dessert wine. So I have these chocolate cupcakes with red wine poached pears in them. They are so good. So then the next book, Beauty Expos, I did afternoon tea recipes. Now, I mean, you can buy all your breads now. There's some excellent breads out there that you can get. I mean, the secret to turning gluten-free bread into delicious bread is called toast. It it's like going on Chopped, and you open up the mystery basket and you're like, I've made toast. And that is the best thing you can do. So what I gave you was the desserts and the scones and the fillings, lots of fancy, because I've done a lot of afternoon teas. I've made a lot of teas. I used to go out for afternoon tea with girlfriends, and then I made the mistake of making us an afternoon tea. And that was the end of going out. From that point on, they're like, what if we give you the money? You make the tea.
That's very flattering, because that means yours was better than wherever y'all were going in the professionals. So
maybe better, but definitely more food. And that was definitely a big part, because a couple of them would want to go out for burgers after tea. They're like, there's a Sonic. Let's get Sonic. So, and then for antique auctions, all of the recipes, I got this idea. It's summertime. It's Cape May. Everything is in full swing. Taurus season is absolute chaos. And I thought I should make all my recipes based on the boardwalk sweets. And one of my favorite recipes, which nobody's going to be able to make unless they want a special order ingredients, was the crunch coat bars. Crunch coat is something, if you're at the Jersey Shore, you go to get, we don't actually call it soft serve, but we call it soft serve here in Virginia. It's called frozen custard. You go get frozen custard and you ask for crunch coat, and they roll it in this mixture of rainbow jimmies, which everybody else in the world, I think, calls sprinkles. Jersey like to change the words for everything, okay? They're like, call them jimmies. And peanut brittle and peanuts, and it is delicious. And it is the only recipe that I have ever made up that when I Googled it to see, who else has made it up, because it's very hard to find anything that doesn't exist somewhere, I found nothing. Nobody had done anything with that crunch coat topping in a recipe. And I think it's because it is freakishly expensive.
It sounds well yummy, though.
It is very good. So that was a delicious recipe.
Yeah. Are your recipes on your website?
The recipes are not on my website from the books, because the publisher wants you to buy the book to get the recipe.
Right.
But I put special recipes on the back of my first 3 bookmarks. Like one of my bookmarks has pineapple upside down cake muffins. That's very good.
Yeah.
But whatever I put in my newsletter, I think hot cross buns is in my newsletter from maybe before, but because I do a lot of holiday baking. Mm-hmm. So hot cross buns is in the book and the newsletter, but things like the cream puffs, that's not in the books. And the next book that comes out quite a far away is Halloween.
Oh, fun.
I've already forgotten all the recipes that are in the book. I've forgotten everything, but I know it's nothing that is in the newsletter that I remember.
Well, it's funny because we're always working, a few books ahead. So sometimes it's like by the time, like somebody emailed me recently and asked me a question about bending the paw. And it's like, that came out like 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm like, I had to really think about, what was this thing? But
wait, who's the sleuth in that book?
Yeah. Melissa, we have a comment from Trevor that Olia needs a gluten-free bread.
Olia, yes.
Olia, sorry.
Yeah, she does. Daryl Wood Gerber is gluten-free, and she puts some in her books too. She does. And I just need to be contracted for more books. The 8th one comes out in November, and after that, we'll see.
So this is what happens when you read a name and it solidifies in your head the way, like I pronounce her, like Ola.
Yeah, I know. It's cool.
Yeah. Sometimes it's like we need a little pronunciation thing. So, okay, so I have a question about the antiques, getting back to kind of the theme of the book. So the vampire hunting kit was really cool. So I'm assuming that's a real thing. And I'm wondering if you've ever come across one, your research on antiques, what other cool stuff you came across, and whether you're an antique buff, whether you decorate with those in your house, just kind of your whole relationship with antiques.
Well, of course, Cape May is a real place, and the Cold Spring Village is a real place, and the Antique Show is a real place. It's a real event. So I started from that point. I thought it would be fun to do something at the antique show. And when I started looking at antiques, I discovered the vampire hunting kit. And I was like, what is that? And I was
perfect.
I was a little disappointed that, antique auctions and the Cold Spring Village show, it's summertime. Because tell me that vampire hunting kit isn't the perfect weapon for a Halloween book.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
So I was torn. I was like, oh, do I save it for Halloween? I was so excited. I'm so tickled with it that I even emailed my editor at Kensington and I said, okay, has anybody used this? Because this is ridiculous. This thing exists. And he told me, listen, just do it. Just go for it. So it does exist. And the way I've described it in the book, you can buy them. I mean, I think that certain elements are genuine antiques, and I think some of the elements are total hokey, where somebody put this together and they put these things in here to look like antiques, but elements really were antiques. For one thing, the box it's in, I think the box it's in was the actual antique. You can Google it. You can Google antique vampire hunting kit. I've seen it called a vampire hunting kit and a vampire slaying kit.
Ooh.
Yes, they have all the elements that I've described in the book.
But Buffy could have used those.
Yeah.
No, it was too much fun to pass up. I don't know that much about antiques. Anything that I put in my books, I have to research. I know food, I know my recipes, but antiques, I don't know what I'm talking about. So everything that I've said is real, but I got it from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Someone has helped me with what this is and showing me pictures of what it really is so I could get it right.
Well, it's interesting, because they always say write what you know, but really it's just know what you write. We can always go and do research and learn about things. And I think it's always fun how we do learn these random facts when we're writing our books, that.
I know more about poisons now than I ever thought I was going to know.
Right, because we're not all killers. We're not writing what we know about how to kill people.
Speak for yourself.
Where's Curtis?
I don't know. He went out earlier, and the
night is young.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you grew up in Cape May, and so obviously that's beachy. Are you a beach person? Do you like the mountains?
Well, now I love the beach, but my version of loving the beach is being in the shade the entire time, reading a book, listening to the ocean.
Yes.
I burn very easy.
Me too.
I have two settings, freckle and burn.
Me too.
And I don't have time for freckles to all join up together to look like a tan. I don't have that much time to sit out there. So I don't, but as a teenager, I did not like the beach. I mean, I love the idea of the beach, but I've been, plus size since I was 5 years old. Plus size teenagers got enough going on. And there's enough angst to then put on a bathing suit and parade around in front of 10 million bikinis. It's not a good thing. It's not my scene.
Yeah.
So I was a library girl. Well, everybody was at the beach. I was in the library, partly because I loved books, partly because of the whole bathing suit issue, but partly because I'm so old that we didn't have air conditioning and the library did. Mm-hmm. So I would ride my bike to the library and I would sit there all day, day after day. That was my favorite.
When we lived in San Jose, we were renting a house there and it did not have air conditioning. And I remember, people, they were always saying, oh, you're from Texas. It's so hot there. And I'm like, yeah, it's hot, but everywhere you go has air conditioning. I would actually do like a wet t-shirt contest in my own house. I'd get my shirts wet and wear them around the house because I was so hot. And finally we bought a couple window units and just put them in there, even though it was a rental. It wasn't our house, because just to get it down to like 85, because I would feel almost sick and have to take a 3-hour nap every afternoon just to avoid the heat, because it was so bad.
I grew up in the South Bay, south of San Jose, and we didn't have air conditioning growing up, and my parents remodeled after we were all out of the house and got 2 air conditioners for the whole house. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, I know what it's like to sleep with a fan blowing hot air on you.
Oh yeah.
And that's how you have to sleep at night, where everything, you're just like stuck to the bed. It's so where you're like on your fourth shower of the day because you were so hot. So it was not fun. But I didn't really grow up on the island of Cape May. That would have been, it's a very wealthy part of town.
Okay.
And I was not in a very wealthy part of family. So we grew up off the island where there was a lot of retirees, let's say, and they had been there for a very long time, and a lot of empty houses because they were summer houses. And if you're going to build a summer house, you don't put air conditioning in it because you don't plan on being inside. You plan on being at the beach. So I think the house that my parents bought was built as a summer house. So no air conditioning for us.
Yeah, but it's pretty cool. You can say I grew up in a summer house on the beach or near the beach.
Yes, it sounds very exotic.
Yeah.
So we could walk down to the bay and watch the sunset. They were beautiful sunsets if you could get over the smell of dying horseshoe crabs.
Oh,
So
what made them die?
They wash up on the beach and die.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is a very
process.
It is nasty, but it is the only thing that I've ever smelled in my life that smells like that. So I took my son-in-law and my grandkids home with me to the beach a couple summers ago, and I had the funniest moment when they said, "There's turtles down there," and I'm like, "I don't think so. Turtles by the ferry?" And I go look, and I did laugh at them. I did. I should, I should have been like, "Oh, guys, yeah." I was like, "No, those are not turtles. Those are horseshoe crabs, and they nasty." I said, "That smell you smell, it's them." And they were like, "Ugh." So
spur off crab cakes after that. So what about, speaking of things that are not appetizing, what about kohlrabi? Kohlrabi. I was laughing about that. I actually had that in some kind of dish at a Japanese restaurant like 2 or 3 summers ago, and I didn't know what it was, and I had to look it up. So I thought that was so funny. I was like, I actually know what this is. I've eaten this. But
it was part of a farm share that we did here 2 summers ago, and yeah, it was one of the things that we got to. I had no idea what it was.
So did you have a bad experience with it, or how did you come up with that? Okay.
That whole storyline came from growing up like right outside of Cape May. My next door neighbor had a garden, and I don't know what it was about kohlrabi that they found so delightful, but they grew so much, and they just kept giving it to us. It just kept showing up, and we didn't even know what to do with it. And I mean, the only thing she told us to do with it was to do like a fried green tomato, but with kohlrabi. We hated it. We were like, and yet we had these bushels of it because I don't think they liked it either. I think they just were trying to give it away.
It's just the only thing that would grow in their garden, probably.
It is not an easy, it's farmland. Okay. New Jersey, a lot of farmland, but it's really good for things that like sand. So like you can go grow great cantaloupe and strawberries, but there's a lot of crops that you're just going to struggle with. Apparently kohlrabi loves sandy soil because they had it in spades.
That's funny you say that, because I never thought about like my grandfather used to always like Pecos cantaloupes from Pecos, Texas, which is West Texas, where it's sandy, and I never thought about sandy soil being something for cantaloupe. So now I've learned something new tonight.
That is the extent of my gardening knowledge too. So please don't ask follow-up questions. I will not know the answer.
Okay. We're going to move on to cats.
Okay.
So Sir Figaro Newton. So first of all, great name. Where did that come from? And tell us about your love of kitty cats.
I have always loved cats. Even as a small child, I don't know. I just was like, the cats were my animal. They were my spirit animal. And I've always had a cat. I had books and books about cats. There was even a time in my life when I was a lot younger, but an adult, where I had a very, very short-lived try of breeding cats, which is a lot of science. It's a lot of like, you wouldn't imagine that like this white cat and this black cat make a silver cat. You know what I mean? It's like, or make an orange cat. You're like, how in God's name is that going to make an orange cat? But it has to with like all the genes and stuff. So I had cats that I adored, and Persians and Himalayans. And I thought, oh, we'll have kittens. And my one and only time went very badly. Not all cats are good mothers. I will say that, and I will say no
yeah.
more. And that was what I got, and I was horrified. So it was like that was it. I was done. But I've always loved them dearly, and I love the little smushy faces and how fluffy they are, and they're so sweet. And Sir Figaro Newton was my real cat, and my son named him. I actually have a picture here. I don't think you'll be able to see it because the lighting is so bad, even in the picture. But let's see. Try if I get somewhere without a glare. You can barely see the cat. I'm cutting my son's head off to get the cat. That's Figaro.
Has arm around him.
Cute.
Yeah, and he's what's called well, from the books, he's a black smoke. And black smoke is a very, very special coloring. It's a lot involved in those gene manipulations with like getting this cat and this cat and this cat together. But he was my real cat. So I named him Sir Figaro Newton, but my son named him Figaro, which is not nearly a fancy enough name for a cat that fancy.
Yeah.
He required fancying up. So that's how we went to Sir Figaro Newton, and he was a character. And now he's in the books, which I adore because I adore, being able to think about him all the time.
Well, he's a great character. He's very present, and I really like that. And Diane is just an enormous animal person, cat lover too. And I'm sure you love that part too, right? It's like
Yeah, and I
he's a
loved
real
how he had the
character.
I love how he had the relationship with Svetlana. Like they had their little thing going on. You do like, I like it when animal characters are more than just, kind of props.
Yeah.
I like it when they actually have part of the story and the characters react to them. And
Yeah, they're like a real character.
I really feel like I know what my pets are thinking. Their facial expressions and the way they look at you, and you say things to them and they'll turn and they'll give you a look. It's like you really know you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And we have always had where we kind of anthropomorphize our fur babies, where we know what's going on. And so doing it with Figaro is just a continuation of having done it with Figaro. And I've always had a cat because while Figaro is not necessarily where other people can see him, he still lives in my heart and my imagination. Miss Eliza Doolittle is the naughtiest cat I have ever had in my entire life. And she is today's Figaro. Now, she is a calico Persian, and everybody says she is the most beautiful cat they've ever seen. And it is a ruse because she is naughty. I had to get rid of my alarm clock because she learned which button to step on to make it go off to get up. It'd be 5 a.m. She's standing there doing this for me to get up. So
and feed her probably, right?
It's always about feeding her. Cats, they don't care how sick you are. They are in it for number one.
Well, welcome, Chelsea. We've just had Chelsea Walters join us. We're glad to have you. Speaking of being in bed, so I love that this was set in a bed and breakfast, and I'm wondering if you stay in a lot of bed and breakfasts, and if you have a favorite one that you stayed in somewhere.
I have stayed in Cape May, I've stayed in many of the bed and breakfasts over the years, because once all of my family members moved away, I could no longer leech off of their kindness. Stay there. So now when we go just about every year, we go back to Cape May. We've stayed in a lot of bed and breakfasts. Cape May is the only place that I have ever stayed in a bed and breakfast that is more expensive than hotel.
Oh, wow.
Everywhere else, a bed and breakfast is considered a step down from a hotel. But there's so many lovely ones I've stayed in all over the country, and I've stayed in bed and breakfasts in Europe, which is always fun because then you can talk to, the bed and breakfast, the house owner, and they love to have like where you have dinner with them and you talk. We had one bed and breakfast we stayed at in France where we had to be rerouted at the last minute because our English-speaking bed and breakfast had to cancel due to an emergency. So they sent us to their friend's house, and their friends did not speak English. The husband spoke as much English as I spoke French. And that was a decent amount, but that was like, I speak traveler's French. Like I am fluent in menu and where is the museum. I'm not fluent in how are your children.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was ever going to come up. And now I'm in a situation where it all came up. So we sat there for hours with books trying to have a conversation, but it's such a strong memory for my husband and myself. I don't know if it is for them, but it was fascinating. So in Cape May, it's hard to pick a favorite. And honestly, through the years, a lot of them have changed. They are no longer bed and breakfasts. A lot of them are now holiday rentals.
Mm.
So that means nobody is living there and nobody is making you breakfast but you, and nobody is coming in to clean until you leave. So it's like renting a beach house for a week. I loved the Abbey when it was a bed and breakfast because the owner had collected a lifetime of antiques. And we already discussed, I don't know what I'm looking at with an antique. I can tell this is really old, but I don't know what it is. And he had so many authentic antiques around his house. It was like being in a museum that forgot to put up the velvet rope, where you were like, what is that? What is that? And everything was just fascinating. But then for one of the more historic bed and breakfasts, you have the Queen Victoria, which is stunningly gorgeous. And they put on lots of little extra touches like afternoon tea and a chocolate tea. And they have little wine and cheeses and lots of fun things. And for the most modern, because it's funny to me that you'll go to Victorian Cape May and look for a Victorian bed and breakfast, and you'll complain that the toilet is a pull chain. I'm not sure what you expected from the experience when you said authentic, but this is authentic. I think what you wanted was pretty. You wanted something that looked pretty but was modern. And if that's what you want, then I recommend the Harrison. The Harrison completely redid everything, and it's fully modern, and it is beautiful. But you can't go wrong with most of them.
Yeah. Well, did you get any specific ideas for your bed and breakfast from any of those? Or
I did. And I'm not allowed to tell you any of that.
Oh, okay.
Because all right, the stuff that's happening here, I didn't make all of it up.
Ooh.
Some of the craziest stuff where you're like, tourists are not that crazy.
Yes. People are crazy.
There are people I was not allowed to thank because they didn't want it ever getting back that they had told me stuff. So it's not just the antique auctions, because there's stuff in a lot of the books. I can't remember now. There's one of the books where Aunt Ginny is giving unsanctioned ghost tours, where the people wanted a ghost tour, and she was willing to take their money and tell them that they had ghosts. So she gave them a ghost tour, and the things that happened also all real, just from other bed and breakfasts. So I cannot divulge my sources, but I spoke to several bed and breakfast owners, and they're all very sweet and very helpful and can never be thanked in the books.
Well, that's fun that they're willing to tell you their stories too, so you can, get some authenticity and also some ideas, and nothing like going to the source,
Well, and of course I stayed in some of them. So like I'll sneak in there and just look around. I'll start taking pictures. The book that comes out next year, it's quite a distance from antique auctions to Mischief Nights. Mischief Nights is my Halloween book. And I toured 4 bed and breakfasts to interview them about their ghost stories, because there's a whole ghost story theme in Mischief Nights. And I won't give away anything, but I wanted to make sure that when I talked about these specific bed and breakfasts that I got it right. You don't have to believe any of it. This is what they're saying. These are their words. And I wanted to make sure I gave accurate representation. So there are 4 very historic inns or bed and breakfasts in the next book. And it's all of their ghost stories. You could even look their ghost stories up online and see that I got it right.
Oh, cool.
That's really cool. Okay, so I have to take us back to cooking, because part of my question earlier that I wanted to come back to was your amazing kitchen, and why do you have that amazing kitchen?
I was wondering if you're going to go back to that.
Yeah, because it was like you have 2 kitchens, right? You have your like regular kitchen, but then you have this whole like stainless steel, like professional setup, from what I remember.
I did. We had an ice cream business, and dairy is the hardest thing to get certified for, because there's a lot of things with dairy that you don't have with cookies, like salmonella. So there's a lot of certification. So my kitchen was certified for dairy, for production. So we could make and sell small batch ice cream. Then COVID happened and the business didn't. It went through all the phases and all of the marketing and all of the research and development, and lots of ice cream was made and ice cream was sold, but it never got to the point of like being sold in Whole Foods.
Okay.
And then my in-laws moved in with me. And when my in-laws moved in with me so that we could take care of them, the whole business went away. So I still have certification. I still have everything you need for certification. The only thing that's really changed is the ice cream machine is gone and the stainless steel workbench is gone. And I would not be certified now to do the work on the current kitchen island because it's lots of regulations about how things can be cleaned and are they porous and can they hold on to salmonella? So like, is it possible to kill somebody? Some really good idea regulations. Like there's a reason for them, but I still have the professional kitchen, just I don't have the professional ice cream machine anymore.
Gotcha. Okay.
I could probably get certified to do any baking that I wanted to do though.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you should take up muffin making and stuff like that.
I have had that come up so many times where people want me to be a caterer. I've done it. I've done catering, and I have done some wedding cakes, and I have done parties. I've done a wedding. I did a wedding for 120, I want to say.
Wow.
No, 120 RSVP'd. I don't know how many actually came. 120 RSVP'd. And I've done parties for 120. So I've done a fair amount of different things, but like, any business where you're going to sell something for like under $5 and now you have to sell a bunch of them is very hard.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you really like making cookies all day.
Yeah. No.
Well, kind of switching gears here and getting back to, writing and the process. So the killer was a surprise to me, but the path had been laid. So I felt like it wasn't teased or anything, but it was a surprise. And we might have some spoiler alerts if anybody wants to But so I'm curious about your process. Did you know who the killer was going to be when you started out writing the book? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Or did you decide at the end and then kind of go back and plant more clues? Or how do you go about doing that?
So I pants my way through an outline, which makes me a plotter. But that stuff comes from somewhere, So I will spend, weeks thinking about my characters and my story. And I also do a lot of weird little data analysis of my last books. Things that readers don't want to know about, but I want to make sure I'm not doing the same thing over and over. I want to make sure how can this be different? How can I do a different story that really feels different? And so I have a lot of things that I look at to make sure I'm not repeating things. I knew the killer was going to be because I think about it and I figure it out and I know which way I want to go before I start writing an outline. So all of my pantsing happens in my head and then I do an outline. And then within the outline, I pants my way from one point to the next.
I think you've created a whole new way of doing things.
I bet we all do some version of the same thing. We all spend a lot of time imagining and thinking, and some of us write it down, some of us hold it up here, but I'm betting that there's more similarities between our writing styles than differences.
But to pants your way through a plot, to plot your way through pantsing, what did you say? Pants my way through plotting? That's clever.
I do. I pants my way through an outline.
Yeah.
But there is, even though I'm very much a plotter, but there is sort of that initial just brainstorming. I always end up having 3 or 4 pages where I've just written down a bunch of stuff that's kind of all over the place. And then I kind of pair that and start kind of forming it into something more. So it sounds kind of similar to that.
Absolutely.
But I have to have it,
Yep. And I, when I come up with my outline, I don't necessarily follow it. I follow key points. In fact, most of the time the murder is planned. The murder is the most sort of substantive. I make up words too. That might be a real word. Warning.
That was close to a real word.
It might be close. I'm good at close, but That's the part that I really have, that I follow the most. But all those subplots with Aunt Ginny and Sawyer and Tim and Gia and Figaro and his Svetlana and Cleo, I think. Cleopatra. All of those subplots, almost nothing is on the outline. There's points, like I'll talk to Sawyer, go shopping with Sawyer, but everything that happens is pretty much pantsed. The whole scene will be pantsed. I almost always outline around 35 chapters unintentionally. I don't know what the deal is, but always when I'm done, I'm like, good, there's my outline. It's like 35 chapters. And when the book is done, it's between 50 and 55. I don't know what's happening. I feel like the characters take over a lot. I write a lot by instinct. The scene feels too long. I'm going to break it into 2 scenes. Or there's not enough happening here. I'm going to combine scenes. So I always end up somehow things expand. So I stick to the outline mostly for the crime, because I've worked very hard on the crime. And I really want you to get to the reveal of who the killer is and be surprised, but at the same time, realize things you missed.
Yeah.
I plant a lot of clues in places that people aren't looking for clues. 2 unrelated characters who have nothing to do with the crime storyline will talk about something, and that's the motive right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I plant a lot of subliminal clues so that you shouldn't get to the reveal and be like, is this person in the book? What is happening? I want you to be like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my hope.
So
Well,
this,
I think you did a great job of that, because exactly. That's exactly how I felt. Was, this was there. It slid under my radar.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That's high praise. Thank you.
so kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, we're always told, the murder needs to happen in a cozy mystery right away, first page or within 50 pages, but it didn't. Not until like page 96, I think it was, because I was like, wait, where's the murder?
I love that, actually, because
I do too, because you get so much character development and so much story that's outside the actual murder, which I really liked. But how did your editor, are they okay with that, huh? Because I've heard stories where, editors like, no, it must be, by page 10.
This is one of the things. I think the humor and the rules with things like the body drop placement, because I didn't read a lot of cozy mysteries, I didn't know. And nobody's complained. Here's my body drop list. There's where all the bodies drop in all my books.
Oh, cool. And
it's funny because the one book where people complained, it dropped the earliest. And
what did they complain exactly? What did they say? They said it was too soon?
Reviewer. No, I'm sorry. I should have. No, not my publisher. My publisher's never cared one lick. They want a good story.
Mm-hmm.
My publisher is not like, where's the body drop? I'm on page 8. It hasn't happened. You need to rewrite it. 100% wants a good story. Is it fun? Is it fast paced? Did I not want to put it down? And I have been very blessed with my people at Kensington. My editor one time told me that he takes my book on vacation. On vacation, and he's got his stack of reading he has to do. He makes sure mine goes on vacation because it's fun. So
that's high praise, very high praise.
That's what they care about. That's at least what mine care about. So no, not once. It also, the last 3 books are long. They're over 100,000 words. And I was sweating it that they were going to say something with first time. Didn't care, because it doesn't read long.
Mm-hmm.
They're fast. They're very fast paced. They're fun. They're funny, and they're engaging. And so they didn't care that there was, a couple extra chapters, basically is how long they're, a couple extra chapters. Also, I'm contracted for a long book. So,
that's very long in the genre.
Some people are contracted, I want to say 60,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
I'm contracted for 85 to 100.
So are you, Diane, right?
Well, initially, like with my Death and Taxes series and Paw Enforcement, it was 90 to 100, but now they're at 80.
Mine are 70
to 90.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to write them long. I think I just have so many things that happen with the side plots that are so funny to me.
Well, I think that's what makes them it sets them apart a little bit is that you do have just this slice of life happening, and it's just, you're really getting to see Poppy's life and all of, Aunt Ginny and everybody that's around, and there's just so much going into that that's really separate from the mystery itself, which makes it really nice and I think a little different.
And makes her very relatable too, because she feels more real, I think. And you see, okay, she's got these relationships, and sometimes people are irritating or whatever, and sometimes they're wonderful, and that's real life, too. So I think, that really, it creates this wonderful little world that you kind of want to be in. It's comfortable and it's fun, and even though people are dying in it.
Thank you. I read one time, only once in all these years, not like it's been a lot of years, but only once has anyone ever said that Poppy seems a little bit mean to Aunt Ginny. And I thought that you don't have an Aunt Ginny in your life. Because the people who have an Aunt Ginny, like I do, are like, oh, I get it. I get it.
So that kind of leads to the last question, which is, you have Poppy and Gia, and you have Aunt Ginny and her posse, and you've got, all these very quirky and very fun characters. Do you have a favorite character that you like to write, that when you get to write a scene or something from that, with that person as a focal point, that's particularly fun or exciting?
Aunt Ginny's always fun. Aunt Ginny takes over every scene.
Because she's just a little over the top. Yeah.
Aunt Ginny's based on my grandmother, and every scene that she's in, almost all the funny stuff in the book, not planned. Nothing was. I think in Antique Auctions there is a scene with a frog with Victory.
I like the brrr. I love your sound effects. The sound effects to me really brought the stuff alive. Sorry, I've got to be interrupting you there, but yeah.
Since I have to make up words, I use sound effects sometimes because I'm like, I don't know what word this would be. Let's just say this. But none of that was planned with Joanne. Joanne's got to be pwned once in a while because she's so obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
And it became this big setup, which was so delicious to write, that I knew when the payoff was coming, but none of that was planned until like one day in the middle of that chapter. I was like, ooh, I know what I'm going to do.
I love when that happens, those brilliant moments. Yes.
But I do. I've loved Victory, and I've loved Aunt Ginny, and of course Figaro. They're probably my favorites, but then I've also loved writing the romance scenes between Poppy and her man problems. Those are fun scenes. Yeah, I mean, pretty much anything that's really funny was going to be my funniest scene in the book because I was laughing the whole time I wrote it. When Aunt Ginny,
I figure if we can make ourselves laugh or cry or whatever, we've done a good job.
Oh my gosh, I think in Antique, my favorite scene, when the biddies trick Poppy into stealing something. I laughed for hours. And there's a song that Poppy hears in her head. And as soon as I heard that song in my head, I hit play and I played it the whole time. I must have played it 100 times. And I made sure that as I read that scene, it played perfectly to the song. It was so funny to me. So that was probably my favorite scene in the book to write. That plus the frog, of course, was ridiculous.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you.
So what's next for you? You got more in the series coming? You said you got the Halloween one coming up. How many more are you contracted for?
The Halloween one's my last that I'm contracted.
This October or next October?
Next October.
That's crazy.
2023?
Yeah, it's like the locks. I mean, my books have never been longer than 9 months apart, but this is like a year and a half.
Kensington did that to me too. My 8th book was supposed to come out in like April or May, and they pushed it to November, end of November. So yeah,
I don't know how much of that is because they want to put it out at the perfect time for Halloween. And this year, there's not a lot of time for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it had to do with, anything else, like I've heard paper shortages. I don't know. But I'm out of contract at that point. But I've got 2 more books that I want to write. And I'm waiting. I'm in the waiting process to find out if they're accepted. So I've outlined the next book. And if for whatever reason it is not accepted, which I really don't know. I don't know why it wouldn't be accepted, but I mean, the first 6 that are out are doing well. Like even number 1 is still doing really well. But I don't know. I don't know what they're looking at. You know, I mean, I think we all kind of know that it depends on how the people above you are doing.
Yeah.
If there's more people doing well above you, you may not be renewed. But if you're higher up to the top of the middle of the pack, then maybe you'll be renewed. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see, but I will write them anyways, even if I have to self-publish them, because I don't feel the story is finished. Poppy's still trying to find out why she keeps finding these dead bodies. You know, she's had a New Jersey psychic curse her, but she's like, okay, well, who can like lift the curse then?
Oh yeah, that little troll voodoo doll, that was hilarious too.
It's terrible. It was just the little potato doll. Yeah, that was fun too.
Yeah. Do you have any other series that you have a hankering to write that you have in your head?
I do have one I've been working on, partly because I know that I've already been asked from Kensington, do you have anything else you'd like to write? Which kind of feels exciting and also feels like a bad sign when they want to know if you want to write something else. You want to say, why? Why do you want something else? But I do have something else. So I've been working on it in case I have to pitch it. I might like, if I'm on the spot, we're like, all right, what else do you have? I want to be able to say, here's what else I have.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've been in a similar situation. Like I had a series with a female police officer and a female dog. And, you know, I've heard other people say when they were writing police officers, you know, by publishers, you know, with the climate, you know, kind of, I think wanted to maybe cut back on some of that because it was just, you know, it's just a hard time all around, you know, with that. And so I was asked to kind of move on to something else too. And I feel the same way, like the story is not done. So I'm planning to indie publish the next book in that series. You know,
and it has the best title ever. What's the title, Diane? It's a great title.
Oh, Puffily Wedded.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. That's very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can see just from the title why you would want to, like, you obviously are not finished the story arc.
Right. Yeah, they just got engaged. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and even when I had met with my editor, you know, she'd said, yeah, let's do, you know, one more book and then maybe move on to something else. And then, you know, the sales department came back and said, we want her to write a cozy. I was like, okay, because my other ones were a little edgier than cozies. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, because people, I mean, you probably get this question too. People go, well, how many are there going to be in your series? And it's like, we don't know. We don't control that always, you know? So
yeah, I don't know what the magic is that they look for. Like I said, I know that I've always been told it's, are you still selling your backlist? But I am selling my backlist. So maybe it's also enough.
They might want you to write 2 series at one time too.
That when he asked me if I had another series, that's what he wanted. He wanted me to write a second series while I was still writing the first series. And I would love to, but I'm in awe of those of you who do that. And I don't think I can't even wrap my head around it because I am so immersed and I don't know that I could do it. I really don't know. So you guys are all my heroes when you're like writing 2 and 3 series at once. I'm just like, holy cow, I can't even read 2 or 3 books at once.
Sometimes it feels like the head is going to explode, I will say.
But I feel like it also kind of keeps things fresh too. It's like, you know, it's kind of fun to go back and circle around, but I can see both things. Are you a very chronological writer then?
I am.
Yeah.
The only time I've ever skipped ahead is if I was really struggling with a scene and there was a scene coming up that I desperately wanted to get to. I've only done it twice in 7 books where I skipped ahead and I didn't skip far. I probably skipped a couple of pages, you know what I mean? And then wrote the scene that was fun. And that kind of put me in the mindset to write the scene that I was struggling with.
Yeah.
I've started writing the scenes. I've started writing the murder scenes. They don't go in the book, but I've been writing them to give myself a better handle on what's happened so that when I dole out my clues line up with, instead of later getting to the point where we're going, well, how is that possible? I don't think you could do that. I want to make sure you can do it first.
That's a great idea.
I think you just enjoy killing people.
I think we all do. That's what we think about. We're like, you know, what could I use? I just came up with a murder weapon the other day and I'm like, has nobody actually done this in real life? Because this seems very easy. So I've got my new murder weapon for my new book. So we'll see if I get to use it.
We'll be looking for that.
Thank you.
Well, Libby, it's been so fun. You're just delightful.
That's very sweet. Thank you
for spending your holiday Sunday evening with us. And to everybody who is watching tonight live, thank you for spending your holiday Sunday evening with us too.
Yeah.
And I'll post this, and Libby, you can share the video also. And so if you want to go ahead and add any links to the comment section that's on Book Wars, that would be great, you know, to your website, to buy your books, anything.
Yeah. Let's see if I can figure it out. No clue. No clue.
Oh no, just on Facebook. Whenever, you know, back in the group. Yeah.
Yeah. So go
You're
to
welcome.
our Facebook page and just look for the one that has our video in there.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Yeah,
I'm so glad that you read it and liked it.
It was a great book. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back to the beginning now.
Oh, good.
And plus,
Yay.
now I have to buy all the books because of the recipes, if that's the only way I can get them. So I'm determined.
That was clever. Clever of the publisher, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same publisher, and they've never told me that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe they don't know that I put them on my website. I have no idea.
Very sneaky.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Have a great evening. Thanks again, Libby.
All right, I'll put stuff on Facebook. Thanks.